coming. This presentation is HTTP botnets, and I'm going to leave you with in the good hands of Steve and Adair. So here you go.
All right, thank you. That's very trusting, good hands. Hopefully you guys aren't disappointed that it says on your sheet there that Andre Domino will be presenting. We were going to co-present, but he got called away from work, so I will be the sole presenter of this presentation. My name is Stephen Adair, and I am with the Shadowserver Foundation. I also have a day job. We're all volunteers, which you'll see in a second. So I do IT security work for the government. We'll talk about that later. That's not the point of this presentation or where any of this content comes from. If you're not familiar with Shadowserver, we're an all-volunteer organization in the process of actually becoming nonprofit. We have several members across the different countries. We're currently about 10 people who are really active. We have other people who are part of it, but since we all have our day jobs, it can vary from week to week, month to month, whether someone's just gone at complete AWOL. But there's a good core set of people who are there frequently and doing a lot of this research. Basically, we take a look at a darker side of the internet. We're looking at all kinds of botnets, all kinds of malware, spam, DDoS attacks, you name it, and we pretty much have some kind of eye on it or know someone who does or in some way involved in researching, monitoring, and reporting when we can. So basically our process flow for how we operate, we do a lot of capturing of malware. We have a very large malware repository. We have honeypots. We get different reports. We get malware from different partners, different organizations that provide us with samples. And we run those through one of our sandnets. We have several different sandnets, and they analyze the malware. Currently, we're using CW Sandbox, and we're also working on another method to also sandbox all the malware, get reports. So we take all that out. We extract the data. So, for example, IRC botnets, they come through. We see they connect to IRC. We automatically extract that data, and then we put out different snoops so we can emulate and monitor different IRC connections as if we were a bot. At the same time, we see the same things with HTTP. We monitor different ones of those, which I'll talk about later. And that allows us to get data about who they're attacking, what kind of malware they're spreading, who's connecting to it in many cases. And that's where it comes into the report area. This will be email reports that we give to various ASN owners, IP address owners, different organizations, law enforcement, and I'll show you a good list on another slide later, but that's where we go in, we take that data and we actually try and do something with it, not actually like hold it all close to us. And we don't sell any of our data, it's all provided for free. So kind of like what I described earlier, we have different honeypots, different methods that will bring in data. We have a SAN cluster, it's hundreds, literally hundreds of virtual machines with different VMware and other capabilities where we run our malware through all automatically. We also have capabilities to run stuff manually, so if it needs a little more attention, we can do that as well. And then obviously we all have our own personal machines, which we can do our own analysis on. A lot of times this malware spawns new malware, so you download something, it's actually a downloader, it goes out and grabs more. You're watching an IRC bot, they're telling you to go download something, they're putting links out there. That basically, you grab one source of malware and you might end up with 100 or 200 pieces depending on how busy and how talkative it is. At the same time, we log and report everything, so we know date timestamps when we grab malware, we know where we got it, we know where it's going, we know where it's attacking, or we're watching a lot of it and we're keeping track of all this data. And what we'd like to do with it is generate custom reports. So the report types you see there, DDoS, CNCs, pretty much anything that we can pull out that can be relevant to someone else, another organization. We'd like to provide that back to anyone that we can, anyone that needs it, as long as they're trustworthy and representative of the organization. We don't just send all of like the FBI or some other government organization's attacks to just a random person. You can filter by country, CIDR, country code, ASNs. So basically, if you're a CERT, we have a lot of CERTs on our list, they want everything that attacks their country. Several countries actually have CERTs, they can do quite a bit of stuff in there. They have a lot of oversight over the country, so if they see something going on in, for example, like Norway or the Netherlands, they have really good insight into the ISPs, and they can actually go and force them in many cases to take action. So we find a lot of the foreign countries that receive our reports can do a lot of really good stuff with it. At the same time, we have the emerging threats list, which was formerly bleeding threats. That's where the IRC list that a lot of people use. That's automatically produced from our ticketing system for IRC botnets. Right now, unfortunately, we don't have anything in terms of a blacklist for domains and other malware. That's kind of something you really have to have a lot of time to manage since things change so rapidly there. But we have a lot of people, law enforcement that we work with. We provide them what we can, international and local. Basically anyone who can use our data and if they want to go prosecute someone, investigate them, we try and get it to them. This is just a quick example. It's might not mean a lot to you. It's an example of a DDoS report. Shows the command and control server, the commands they issued, the channel they were in, where they were connected to. Same thing with the other malware reports. If you're hosting malware, we'll give you all the relevant information, the URL, domain names, etc. So jumping away from just Shadowserver and what we do, moving over to just botnets. Specifically, IRC was kind of like the bread and butter for a while, and a lot of people still think Shadowserver only deals with IRC. That might be because of the emerging threats list. Behind the scenes, we do a lot that doesn't have to do with IRC. It's no longer the #1 command and control mechanism for bots. So a lot of people think IRC is declining. It's not declining too much. It's just that the other things are rising quite a bit. There's still hundreds, literally hundreds, if not thousands, of valid command and control IRC servers right now that are having anywhere from 1 bot on them to 10, 20,000, just very ranges. For the IRC, it's really easy for them to get into it. There's hundreds of versions. It's kind of easy to set up. It takes a little bit more skill and ability if they want to keep it up because they have to run an IRC server. They can use the public networks, for example, but public networks are a lot more responsive to shutting them down, for example, like FNet or Verizon or any of the other ones undernet. Peer-to-peer botnets, on the other hand, they've come to the forefront. You hear about them here and there. We've seen some different custom ones. There's a few out there. They've been in the news a lot. The Stormworm, for example. I mean, that has and had a lot of machines on it, but it's still not really close to being the #1 command and control mechanism. And also, for someone to do that, it's really a custom job. There's not really a lot of kits or anything out there that you can go and set up a peer-to-peer botnet. You have to specifically program that and have more skill set. So here we are at the point of this talk, HTTP botnets. It's not IRC, it's not peer-to-peer. HTTP control botnets are back on top. They are the #1. They've been that way for a while. Pretty much we find dozens of new ones every week. It can vary from hundreds in some cases. It just depends on how much malware we get in. Generally, there's a centralized server. So kind of like IRC, where there's a centralized server, they have to phone in somewhere. So there's similarities. Bots have to go somewhere. You have to go and detect and get their commands or phone in or send their data in. A lot of times they either use dynamic DNS, so they'll use like dyndns.org. A lot of the ones from that is popular like in China and Asia is like the 3322.org, 8800.org, some of those real popular providers. But other HTTP botnets will also use the direct IP access. They'll just hack a server or they'll buy a server with a stolen credit card or whatever the case may be, and they'll just have it phone in directly to the IP address, which kind of gives you no doubt that they have control of the machine. In some cases, they've compromised a valid website. So kind of what are the benefits to it? It's really a low barrier of entry right now for people to set up an HTTP-based botnet. I'm hoping people in here don't just rush out and start setting one up now after getting this good information. But the kits are relatively easy to find. You can go out there in a few minutes and actually download a full kit with the builder. It's really easy to set up. All you need is a LAMP stack. That could be, in some cases, that's Perl. In other cases, that's PHP. Basically, you just untar your botnet, and you're good to go. And that pretty much, a lot of times there's other providers that provide PHP, and you'll find HTTP botnets on free web hosting providers. They don't always have to be a compromised system.